Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Canadian Story. I'm pleased to have Alicia Erickson on with us today. Alicia, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you love? What makes you tick? What do you do?
Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia Erickson, Miss Rodeo Canada 2020 and 2021. The first time ever that a Miss Rodeo Canada has served a 2-year reign since we started in 1955. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool for sure.
And I guess a little bit about myself. I grew up in a small town about an hour and a half northeast of Calgary, Alberta. It's called Trochu. And I like to explain it to my American friends. I said, just remember snowshoe and Trochu, and you'll know I'm from Canada.
There you go. That is a good little mental stimulation that you got there.
Yeah. So that's where I live. And rodeo wasn't actually in my nature where I grew up. I fell in love with the sport when I saw a picture of my mom in an old newspaper clipping. She actually was the Trochu race meet queen back when she was 18. And I said, who's this? Like, what is this? A crown and a sash? I said, I want to be that. I want to be a cowgirl. So fell in love with it, had a goal, chased my dream. And here I am as Miss Rodeo Canada.
It's amazing. Chasing dreams and getting to them is one of the things the Canadian Story is all about. So speaking of the Canadian Story, what do you love about this country?
I just love that it's my home. No,
that's a good reason.
I love Canada. Actually, I was thinking recently, coming to the United States, traveling and teaching people about rodeo, our Western heritage and things like that, you get questioned a lot about where you're from. And I was thinking back to some simpler times. I was thinking, what did I love about my home when I was a little girl, when things weren't so, when I didn't have as many challenges or tasks and life was just simple? What did I just love about my home? And I loved summer. I loved winter. I love fall, and I love spring. I love our 4 seasons, and I love that we can have all of them in one day.
Yes, particularly in Alberta. I remember one June playing tackle football in the snow in June.
Oh my!
It's making snow angels when it's supposed to be spring or summer. That's
that's a special kind of experience.
Exactly. No, I love that. And I was thinking about just the free experiences that I did as a child. No matter where I was, it seemed like it was easy to find a lake or a river or the Rocky Mountains or maybe some flat Saskatchewan land. We did a lot of road trips when I was a kid. And that seemed to be something I loved. I just loved exploring Canada. And as Miss Rodeo Canada, I actually have only been in 3 provinces. So I know it's a little embarrassing to say. It's one of my goals I'm working on. But I've been to BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. And I've explored all 3 of those quite a bit. I've yet to make my way further east. But I can say I'm pretty well-rounded in those 3 provinces.
Yeah, I find it's actually an interesting aspect of Canada that there's not as much traveling interprovincially as maybe there is interstate, right? Like a lot of people in the States will go and visit other states as part of their vacation, but we're kind of like, get us away from the winter. Let's go somewhere warm.
Yeah.
But we do that all the time.
We just want out of the snow.
Yeah, exactly. So as Miss Rodeo Canada, now 2 years running, you are a representative for Canada, right? You're kind of carrying the flag. Tell us a little bit about what that's like, what people ask you, what you kind of tell them about the country that you're from.
Sure. So I guess, yes, I'm Miss Rodeo Canada. And part of that is I'm representing our whole country, but I'm representing rodeo for our whole country and our Western heritage, beef advocacy, farming, everything in general that has to do with our Western lifestyle. And so my job as Miss Rodeo Canada and kind of our mandate is that I travel Canada provincially through to the United States, sometimes even Australia. That's been very difficult, obviously, the past 2 years. But we've done what we can. And I get to teach about that lifestyle. I help to preserve it. I go to schools, to seniors' homes normally, and to different rodeos. And I teach people what rodeo is like in Canada, what our Western lifestyle is, and everything in between. It's also an all-volunteer position. So as Miss Rodeo Canada, I hold this for normally 365 days of the year, volunteering. So you really have to have a passion and love what you're doing and want to be able to promote it for the betterment of the sport and the industry. And that's something I've had from a young age. So it's been pretty simple and easygoing for me to do. But example, right now I'm in Reno, Nevada, and it's crazy a lot. I'm good friends with a lot of the state queens. So Miss Rodeo Nevada, Oregon, California, and they question me a lot about Canada. And it's funny because they don't know a heck of a lot. I know quite a bit about the United States, but they don't know much about Canada. They don't really talk about it a lot. So it's been really fun to be able to educate them. We don't all ride polar bears. It's not 365 days of the year.
No, and, only half of the year in Alberta.
Yeah, only half of the year. And they always bug me. I'm always so apologetic and probably one of the first people to say, like, please, I'm polite. And that's something that Canadians are known for, right? Because we go down south and we're like, stop being so nice to everybody. You're so kind. I said, just in my nature.
Yeah, just how we were raised.
That's who we are.
And they say to me all the time, they're like, where's your accent? We don't hear your accent. I said, well, it's not that I say A all of the time. That's what they think the accent's about, right? That I'm supposed to say A. I said it comes free flowing. And when I'm talking to my friends, sometimes it'll come up, but no, it's pretty funny. I guess
it is interesting how close we live to the States and how much we pay attention to them and how little they pay attention to us. But I sometimes think it's also how little we pay attention to ourselves, right? Like sometimes we fail to define what it means to be Canadian. And part of what it means to be Canadian is this Western lifestyle that you're an advocate for, really. And so why don't you share a little bit with the listeners why you are taking 2 years of your life to advocate for this lifestyle and this heritage and what it means to you, but also what it means to Canada?
Mm-hmm. So Western lifestyle and why I love it and why I'm doing this. Well, it started as a livelihood, rodeo. A lot of people don't understand why we have rodeo and where it started. And I feel like it's really miscommunicated and misrepresented sometimes if you're not educated on that. And that's not everyone's fault, but that's what I'm here to do.
Exactly.
So it honestly did start as a livelihood, and now it's progressed into a livelihood, but in a different aspect. So how rodeo started was cowboys out on the range. They were raising cattle, raising all different kinds of animals. And in order to keep them healthy, they had to find ways out in a huge, big open pasture to be able to doctor these animals and give them medicine and round them up. So many of the events we see in rodeo, example, roping, steer wrestling, team roping, calf roping, all these things, that all started out of nature, really. And then these cowboys out in the pasture, they had to be able to rope these animals. It was the only way they could do that on horseback, to be able to give them the medication they needed to survive. And so that turned into I wonder who's the best at that.
Yeah.
I wonder who's the fastest.
Yes. The human condition competition.
Yeah, a competition. We all love a good, healthy competition. So that's kind of how rodeo started. And it's very deep in our Canadian roots. Someone said to me yesterday, I was on a cattle drive in Reno, and they said, we watch Heartland. That's filmed in Alberta, right? And I said, yeah. They said, well, how hard is that to be able to bring the horses in and the rodeo, sorry. Like, do you have rodeos in Canada and Alberta?
Oh, no.
And I was like, yes, this is an education moment.
True.
This is exciting. I embrace it, and I'm excited to teach people. So I said, yes, we are deeply embodied in our Western heritage and rodeo, just like you are here in the South. I said, it's rodeo. It's been around for years. I mean, hundreds of years. I think the Calgary Stampede has been going on for over 100 years now. And same with many of the rodeos in Canada. And she said, well, how many do you have? I said, well, the majority of them are held in Alberta. Alberta's actual fun fact here, rodeo just became our official sport in Alberta.
Makes sense.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yep.
Yes, that's fresh. I think maybe 2 months ago. So that's something we're really proud of. But Alberta is a really agricultural based province, and same with Saskatchewan right beside and many of the provinces. So it all started out in the field, and then it progressed into the arena. So cowboys could get the chance to make a little extra money by showing off how good they were at their lifestyle at home. So it progressed into that. Entry fees used to be like $2 to get into an event, maybe less money than that. And, payout would be $5 or something. That's a lot back then.
Right. Yeah.
And now we take that, and like many things we see how they've evolved, rodeo has evolved into, a huge lifestyle. It is people's lifestyles. It is their way of making their living. It is a job. And so we see events like the Calgary Stampede that this year it's cut in half, but it's normally $100,000 paycheck for a winner. And that can keep someone going, I mean, for quite a while. But it's turned into that. So all of these events started out in the pasture, and then now these cowboys are making their living in the arena and traveling. So I get to travel around and explain to people my stories, my rodeo stories, and why I love this culture so much. I didn't start out as a rodeo person. Even I didn't live on a farm. I grew up in town. But because I was interested in becoming a rodeo queen and I loved it so much, I made connections with people in this Western lifestyle, and they want to teach you. They want everyone to be educated so that, we can be open-minded and learn as a whole. And that's what they did to me. They opened me in with open arms. I had a role model. I had people on my team, and they taught me everything I needed to know in order to become successful in this industry. And that's kind of my goal, I guess, today as Miss Rodeo Canada. My platform is to be the person you needed when you were younger. So I love teaching and educating people so that they have the resources to become who they want to be in life, and set them on their path to success.
So why don't you share a couple of these stories that you would share when you go about why you love the rodeo and like experiences that you've had that have just brought you joy in this lifestyle?
Oh, I mean, I don't think there's any community that I've been involved in a lot of sports. Like I figure skated growing up. I didn't play any school sports, but I guess figure skating, and I'm a figure skating coach now. So I've seen quite a bit of, difference in the sporting community. And I think, to be honest, rodeo is probably one of the biggest like brotherhoods and families. It doesn't matter where you are in this world. If you're a part of a rodeo, or if someone sees you with a cowboy hat on, they honestly welcome you in with open arms. It's just such a welcoming community that just has a love for their sport and wants to see people succeed in it. Normal competition, we see people very secretive. People don't really necessarily help each other. Say, example, in soccer, like teams are very competitive against each other and don't necessarily look for the best because they want to win. But in rodeo, in saddle bronc riding, let's say, I often see people or the athletes helping each other back behind the chutes. They are the first one to give you a handshake, a high five. Your competitors are your best friends in that arena and your role model. So success and support is probably the two biggest, things that they want to see inside the rodeo arena. And it's one of the toughest sports on your body. I'd probably say it is the toughest sport on your body, so to be able to have that support and that love and that brotherhood inside of the arena is probably what's kept it going for so long. But something that I see is it's, as a young girl riding in the arena as Miss Rodeo Canada now, I ride through that arena. They introduce me and introduce my name, and I'm waving and riding around on a horseback, usually in the beginning of a rodeo. And what I see is young girls, young boys clung onto the fence and looking into the arena with inspiration because they want to be in there one day, and they are so excited to be able to look up to a role model, and they see you riding through that arena and a spark ignites inside their soul, and they set a goal right there, Right. That's where I was at, and I look to be that inspiration for other people. So it's pretty cool to be able to experience that and to create that for the younger generation.
Yeah, it's a mentorship role now that you kind of come into, where you get to be like, this is something that I love, and let me teach you how to love it.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about. And like I said, you have to have that love, and you have to be you have to be a people person for this role. You really do. Yesterday I woke up at 3 a.m. and we went out into the desert for a cattle drive, rode all day with 58 people from all over the United States of America. I chatted with probably every single one of them and talked to them about myself, my role, Miss Rodeo Canada, what I do, our country. Went to lunch, went back to our house, got changed, went straight back to the rodeo grounds, and did grand entry for an extreme bull riding there. Talked to a dozen other people. You always have to be there, willing to be there, and a happy face, because you never get to live. This is the thing I always say to myself when I'm having a bad day, or maybe something isn't going the right way. You only get to live. I don't even know what day today is. June 19th.
18th.
18th. You only get to live June 18th, 2021 once. So experience it all, take it all in, and live it to the best you can, because it's only one day.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of romance around the like the cowboy individualism mystique, right? Of like out there on the prairies, or I guess in the Midwest, and kind of the ruggedness, the adventuring spirit of it. What do you think? Do you think that how do you think that attaches to maybe the Alberta spirit, but the Canadian spirit in general of exploration and things like that?
Oh, I think probably Canada is probably one of the most explored countries in the world. Like, talking to people yesterday, they were saying to me, Canada is so beautiful. We love Canada. We love the people that actually have visited know much about Canada.
Yeah, right.
We love going there. We love the Rocky Mountains. We love the East Coast. We love this. We love that. It is so beautiful and so free. And the people, embrace their culture and invite us in with open arms. And, in this state that our world's in right now, it's caused quite a bit of separation amongst people. And it leaves us not necessarily, I know a lot of people, losing pride for our country, and not necessarily because they don't like where they live, or it's just we're going through a tough time. And I think it's really important to think back from where are our roots, and where do we come from, and where do we want to see ourselves in the future, and how do we get back to that? So I like to think about these people that are coming in with open minds, like the people that have visited Canada prior to everything that's going on, saying, we love your people, we love your country, we love exploring it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how do we get back to that? How do we, I kind of got lost in all of that. When you're on social media 24/7, looking at all the things that are going on in this world, you kind of get lost as yourself as a Canadian. You forget where you come from, and you forget the amazing opportunities and freedom that come with our country. And I don't want to say you take it for granted, but maybe I have taken it for granted in the past. But when I really think about it, I don't ever want to take it for granted one more day in the future. And I'm just so appreciative to live in the country of Canada, and it's always going to be my home. And I am so glad to be able to share that with other people.
Yeah, I think it's awesome what you're doing, and I think Canada needs more ambassadors like you out there in the world, sharing your love for our country, but what our country is, and reminding people that we do have a very diverse culture. Yes, we have a Western cowboy culture, but I also love that you teach figure skating. You're embracing both seasons, right? You're like
definitely.
You're like, oh, I'm gonna do something that's utterly Canadian, and that's something that maybe isn't necessarily associated with Canada, but is so much a part of who we are, and so much of a part of who we are as Albertans too. And what is it like sharing about Alberta particularly? Because we talk a lot on this podcast about how the regions of our country are so diverse and interesting, right? We've got the Maritimes, which are so different than Alberta. But as an Albertan, born and raised, and someone who loves the our provincial sport now, what is it about Alberta particularly that you like, and maybe a place in Alberta that's special to you?
Oh, yeah, actually, I can be pretty passionate about that. Alberta is my home. It's where I come from, and I'm so proud of our roots. And I guess when I think Alberta, and when I explain Alberta to other people, I think about oil and gas. I think about our farming community. I think about the Rocky Mountains. I think about the rolling hills, the Badlands, and everything in between. And I was very lucky growing up. In Trochu, I don't know, 10 minutes straight east out of town, is the Red Deer River flows straight through. You enter a river valley, and down there is a valley. There's a ranch, and it's called the TL Bar Ranch. And I grew up leading trail rides down there, and it's the Badlands. There's been multiple different dinosaurs and dinosaur bones and findings down there. And I've explored that since I was a little girl. And I love being able to show other people that in our history, and especially Drumheller too, because they have the Royal Tyrrell Museum there. And that's one of my favorite things to bring up with children too. I visit a lot of schools down here, and I tell people, I come from the land of dinosaurs.
Yeah, and it's so true. It's like
right?
one of the best dinosaur museums in the world, and it's in Drumheller.
Isn't that cool? Just a small town, and No, I love sharing that. And so I've been lucky to be able to explore the Badlands on my horses. I led trail rides down at TL Bar Ranch for years. And that's part of where I got my people skills. I led people from all over the world that didn't even speak English on horseback, that had never rode horses before.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to have people skills in that moment.
I remember one time I led a trail ride with, there was 3 or 4 individuals that were as German as they come. They spoke very fluent German, no English at all, and were very, never had rode a horse before, but were, so excited for the experience. And I feel like I'm really good at communicating with people, even if I don't speak their language. I'm really good at reading body language, facial expressions. I'm just very intuitive. And so it's like, yeah, Alicia, you'll be great to take this trail ride out,
Yeah, you don't have to be able to speak to them.
No, right? And man, I don't know if they loved it or hated it by the end of it, because, they were trying, and this is the thing with tourists, they're trying to ride horses. The horses, there's grass everywhere. They're trying to eat. They're trying to hold their reins. They're trying to steer the horses, but they're also trying to take photos.
Right.
It's a lot to do at once.
I have a lot of fond memories of that. And, and then my other one is they had black cows across the river valley. Just across the river, you could only see that they were black dots. Okay. You couldn't really see what they were. And on multiple trail rides, I can remember people, bears are over there. There's bears over there.
A whole herd of bears.
I'm like, no, don't worry. It's not bears. It's just cows. Yeah. So
they're a lot nicer.
That's probably one of my favorite parts of Alberta, and kind of a hidden gem in my eyes is the Red Deer River Valley, the Badlands, Drumheller, the Royal Tyrrell Museum. That's kind of where I grew up and where I know a lot about. And also the Dry Island Buffalo Jump is not far from me either. And that's a beautiful piece of the Badlands that holds a lot of history and a lot of heritage. And I guess I'm just really proud to be from that area.
Yeah. Oh, it's very close to where I'm from, so I know that feeling. What do you find? Okay, so a lot of our listeners will have never ridden a horse. So why don't you describe the experience that you've had watching people newly ride a horse, and what it's actually like to ride a horse, and what skill set it takes? Because this is just, I think, largely unknown to most of our listeners.
Including me.
Including Zach.
And I would love to know how to ride.
That's just fine. This cattle drive I was on actually yesterday, so it's a 5-day thing. They're driving like 300 cattle from California to Reno, Nevada, and most of these 50 guests have never been on a horse before, and they're riding like 8 hours a day. Okay.
Ooh, wow.
And by the time I got there, it was the very last day. And I'm thinking to myself, so all these guests must have rode horses before and they're like, no, they've come a long ways from the first out of these 5 days. And I said, wow, that's pretty darn good. So riding a horse, it's not like driving a truck.
No.
It has similarities, but I also teach riding lessons. I guess I did. I've been pretty busy now, but I taught riding lessons for a long time along with leading trail rides. And my biggest thing is you got to start from the ground up, because people can be so uncomfortable around horses. They're these big, huge 1,200-pound animals that have a mind of their own, and they can be gentle. And they're, one of the nicest creatures in the world that attach with human emotion. I mean, they're therapeutic. They're used in personal therapy with humans. But at the same time, you have to be willing to give the same respect to that horse that you were expecting back. Horses are very sensitive in their nature, and they can read your emotion and your mind more than you even know. So I explain to people, it's not like driving a car. You have to be able to kind of read what that horse is going to do before it's going to do it. And you can tell, but you have to pay attention. And so I'm just thinking about all of my trail ride days and stories I have from that, but horses have a mind of their own and they will test you. But, I often tell people when they first get on, you have to be gentle. These horses will test you, but you have to be gentle. You can't just rip their face around and expect them to go where you want or do what you want. You have to give them that respect. So, It's kind of hard to explain. I've actually never really been asked that question.
No worries.
I hope you get to experience that one day. Maybe I could be the person to do that for you.
There you go.
I would love that. So you talked about like you have to pay attention to them. So when you're on and you're riding, what are the things that you are watching for?
Oh, I mean, horses give so many body signals. Example one is their ears. Ears tell a lot about their emotion. If a horse's ears are up, they're looking like they're paying attention to something. If their head's, if their head's poked up and they're kind of high-headed, they're looking at something, or maybe nervous about something, or maybe they're just happy. Like those are kind of the emotions. If their ears are like in the middle and kind of droopy and rested, they're just relaxed. They're just there for the day. They're just hanging out. If their ears are pinned straight back, it's not good.
And why not?
It means they're pretty angry.
Yeah.
Okay,
means they might start bucking.
Yeah. And I mean, their feet too, and their body signals. If a horse is shifting uncomfortably, you have to notice that and realize what might be going on. It might be a bug underneath their stomach, or it might be that they're not feeling good. You have to pay attention to their tail. If their tail is swishing uncontrollably, could be because of flies, or it could be because they're not feeling well and they're irritated. It's just the same as humans, except they can't speak. So it's just what horses will tell you things, but you have to be paying attention and you have to be listening or watching, I guess. I have 2 mares, and mares are female horses between the ages of like 3 and until like 35, whenever they're passing ages. And mares are known to have attitudes. So it's, there's these shirts and their hashtag like mare attitude or mare strong, and they're sassy. Sometimes they're just, you don't know what they're going to do next because they kind of just do what they want. It's like maritude. So I have 2 mares at home, and they're probably the funniest horses I've ever gotten. they probably, and then they say, oh, horses are like their owners. And I'm thinking to myself,
Uh-oh.
Well, I thought it was interesting that you said, I've heard this before, horses are such emotional creatures in a way that I think almost no other animal really is, right? Because horses aren't like, let's say, a dog, which is a pack animal, which needs, certain things in terms of authority and stuff. Horses are more just a feeling. So can you go into that more? Because I think it's a really fascinating insight that I think people would be interested in. Like how do we know that they're more emotional creatures?
Oh, when I was a little girl, an older gentleman came up to me, and I was actually at a Gym Canada. Gym Canada is a competition. They have barrel racing, pole bending, all these different events that are basically time competitions. And horses pick up on your emotion like that. When I'm sitting on the back of a horse, even before I go into a rodeo arena, and maybe my stomach's a little bit unsettled and I'm nervous about going in, your horse will pick up on that, and they'll get prancy and they'll get annoyed. And your first instinct is stop it, like settle down, stop doing this. And then I think to myself, holy man, they're honestly just picking up on my attitude. And that's why they're doing that, is because they feel my emotion, they feel my nervousness, and they're taking it in, and now they're that same emotion. And that is a very common thing with horses. But back to my story, an older gentleman came up to me and he said, my horse was prancing around and I was getting frustrated, and I was mad. And he said, watch this for a second, watch this. And he took his hand and he didn't touch my horse, but he placed it just slightly above the back end of my horse. And actually it was the shoulder, and that area of my horse twitched, like the muscle twitched. He didn't touch her yet. He didn't do anything, but he twitched. And he said, do you see that? I said, yeah, what are you doing? He said, well, do you notice how her skin twitched like that? He said, that's how sensitive horses are. He said, are you nervous right now? And I said, yeah, I'm really nervous. He said, it's portraying through your horse. The reason your horse is acting this way is because of you. And it's not your fault, but you need to realize that. And you need to not get so angry at your horse. You need to be able to take a deep breath and relax. And I guarantee your horse will too. And by golly, she did.
Who knew that horses would teach you a more emotional control?
They do. And like I was saying, horses are used in therapy. They're used in therapy for people that have hip issues or walking issues to be able, I don't remember all of the things. I'm not really, but there's like a hippotherapy and different riding therapies for like kinetics. And then there's emotional therapy. I know of quite a few programs that horses are used for emotional support. So maybe children or adults who have gone through some emotional trauma in their life are referred to a therapeutic riding program, and they go out And they don't just get it set up with a different horse every time or a different, it has to be consistent. They find a horse that would pair well with that person, and horses do. I've had lots of horses that I haven't got along with in the past, and you can't force that. Sometimes a horse and a rider just won't mix, and you'll find that in the rodeo arena too. But with this therapy, you'll find horses, and I have the two I have now, I've connected with them probably like I've never connected with an actual person in my lifetime. They just connect to your emotions, and you just know when you're connected and when they're comfortable around you. And it's one of the best feelings in the world. It's so relaxing. And I think that's why horses are used for these therapeutic sessions.
Yeah. My mom grew up on a farm and grew up around horses. And she said the bond that you form with a horse is deeper and different than the bond you would form with any other animal. There's just an emotional intelligence to them that you can't replicate anywhere else.
It really is. And it's hard to explain unless you've experienced it. And that's why, part of my job, it's almost hard sometimes because I have this sport and this passion and this lifestyle that I absolutely love. And I know that other people would love it the same way that I do, but they just don't get the opportunity or that chance in their life to be able to experience it. And so part of what I do is I try to just give them a slice of the pie. Maybe I only see them for a day or a second or a minute, but I try to give them just a slice of the lifestyle I love. So they form, maybe that little slice gives them a passion or ignites the spark inside of their soul to be able to, want to advance it further and do different things with it. So I really wish that everyone got the opportunity to see life through a farmer's eyes, a rancher's eyes, a rodeo cowboy, cowgirl's lives, because it's life-changing. I would not be the person I am today without rodeo, without horses, farming, ranching. You bet. It raised me, but I had to choose it to raise me. I wasn't born in it. And it's okay if you're born in it too. You still appreciate the lifestyle, but I chose that lifestyle. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I appreciate in my life, because I know that I'm always supported and I was raised right. And I continue to be raised right. And I just love sharing that with people.
So when you chose that lifestyle, what was the thing, looking from the outside into it, like what was the thing that made you latch on and go, I want to be like that?
Oh, well, thinking back, I've told the story about seeing my mom in that newspaper article and just latching to that and wanting that, and just seeing an independent girl on a horse just doing her thing. And I loved that. So that's probably the first thing that kind of really ignited, because after that, she showed me her belt buckle that she won from that. And I just fell in love. I was like, belt buckle, you get a belt buckle and so I fell in love with the materialistic things at first, right? I fell in love with the sight.
As we often do.
Yeah.
You wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be prime minister. This is how we get places, right?
Yeah. So it kind of started out materialistic. And then I begged my parents, like both my parents grew up on farms, and then they moved into town and raised my brother and I. And I begged them, I said, please put me in riding lessons. They're probably like, great, we don't want to get this girl involved with horses. That's going to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Horses are expensive. And that's what's kept me out of trouble all these years.
Hey, there you go.
But honestly, how it really all started, I did take riding lessons, but I saw a rodeo queen pageant in a newspaper clipping. And I thought back to that instance when I saw my mom probably like 7 years before that. I was like, how could I get to that? That's what I wanted to be. There's the opportunity. It's in Carstairs, Alberta. It's not far from me. How can I do that? So seeing that one thing, having that like previous image in my head from when I was a little girl, that kind of, I just, writ it in stone and said, that's what I'm going to do. And then I found all of the resources available. And what I did, Facebook was a thing then still. And I went on Facebook and I searched rodeo queens. That's all I did. I just typed rodeo queens, period. And it came up with I think it was a current Alberta high school rodeo queen. It was Katie Lucas, who's also been Miss Ponoka Stampede and Miss Rodeo Canada. And it came up. And so I messaged her on Facebook. I didn't know this girl. And I said, hey, Katie, I know you don't know me, but I'm really interested in doing this rodeo queen stuff. Would you be able to just lead me in the right direction? She messaged me back. She said, I'd love to. Would you like to come to my house? I can kind of, give you all the details and give you a little information session, help you out. So I remember I was fresh 16. I drove over there on the highway. I was so nervous on that highway. And I drove out to their house by car stairs, and I left their house. I'm not kidding you, with my car filled with clothes, boots, information packets, and just all of the help a girl could ever have. And that's kind of how it started. And that leads me back to the rodeo community opens their arms to you. All they ask is that you are open-minded and that you listen and that you try. Because I think that's a lot of things. A lot of the time what can go wrong is people want to be involved. People want to see what this lifestyle is like, or maybe have a construed image in their head about what it actually is. And they go to an event or they go to something in hopes to kind of see what it's actually about. And they have one image that maybe doesn't settle right with them, or they see something that they don't like, then that's it, right? They're like, nope, that's it. Don't want to see anymore. They don't look further for more information. And that's kind of where our trouble has started with people kind of thinking, rodeo is cruel or the Western way of life isn't needed. And I just really wish people would be more open-minded about that, because I might be a cowgirl, but I am open-minded to all things in this world. And I just wish that people would give this lifestyle the chance that it deserves.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about before on this podcast, and I think is so important. And so maybe we can even go deeper into that, because I think that the urban-rural divide that's occurring in North America, but particularly in the States and Canada, is this idea of not understanding one another anymore. Mm-hmm. Not even wanting to understand each other anymore. Like, oh, those backwards people, right? What are some misconceptions that we can maybe deal with here? Like, what are some of the major misconceptions that we could just do away with?
I think it all starts a lot with being closed-minded. And so let's do like a versus situation. So urban versus rural, rural people maybe will be like, well, we don't need anything urban. Like, we don't need that for our lifestyle to survive, blah, 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 blah. Example, with the exact same side, urban people are like, we don't need anything rural. We don't need that to survive. We don't need that and whatever. Here's what I was thinking the last couple of days being at this rodeo event. We haven't had events in Canada for over a year now because of COVID. So Nevada is now open, and I got to experience at the Reno Rodeo, they had a kickoff concert. So Kip Moore came and played, and there were hundreds of people there, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people there. And I sat back and I was thinking to myself, this is what's going on here. A headliner concert is bringing in all different types of people to this rodeo community that wouldn't normally be here, because they're coming to either listen to the music, or they're coming to maybe get a corn dog, or maybe they're coming to the Midway, but they're bringing people into this rodeo atmosphere because there's a singer, there's a headliner here. So that's something that they're interested in, because we all love music, right? So that brings all different types of people to this rodeo. Well, guess who brought in the rodeo and paid, or who brought in the concert and got the concert to be there? The rodeo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so oftentimes people will come and they will fall in love with the rodeo atmosphere. Maybe they've never been to a rodeo before, but they came to hang out with their friends, or they came for the Midway, but they had to experience the rodeo too. And I'll talk to people, they say, wow, we never thought we would like rodeo, but after sitting in these stands and watching the excitement going on in the arena and that announcer's voice, we love it. We're coming back every single year now. We're going to support this. And maybe they were never rodeo supporters before, but now they saw something that they loved, they got pulled into it, and they had a change of mind. So it's all a trickle-down effect. That all goes down from, let's say urban concerts to rodeos to Midways to all these jobs in few and far in between to secretaries at the rodeo. Like, it all is a trickle-down effect. We need each other, and we need to embrace both our lifestyles, because I don't think one can live without the other. We can't live without farmers and beef and ranchers. Like, we can't live without that in an urban setting. In an urban setting, or in a rural setting, we can't live without the support from all of the urban settings. So it all connects, and it's all that trickle-down effect, and we need to be able to support each other. And it's all going back to being open-minded and experiencing things that maybe you never thought you would, or that you didn't want to.
Yeah, it's about being open to opportunities, right? It's being allowing yourself to experience things that are maybe different and being curious, probably, right? Like actually wanting to know about these things. And I just love that anyone who's curious can come to you and you're happy to share all of these things. One thing I wanted to talk about, because I think it's an important part of the rodeo lifestyle, and you mentioned it earlier, but I wanted to talk about it a bit more. It's the hardest on your body of any sport, right? And we ranching is hard on your body. Farming is hard on your body. I think people think, oh, why would you do something that's so hard on your body? Well, their day-to-day lives are that hard on their body. One of my first jobs was mucking horse stalls at a horse trainer. He basically broke horses, and watching him, multiple times he'd have broken limbs or whatever because he's trying to break these horses, and these are big creatures. Like
these horses are breaking him.
These horses are breaking him, and I want to talk a little bit about that because I think one of the great things about the rodeo lifestyle is there's a lack of fear. Mm-hmm. And it's actually something we talked about with a rancher that was recently on. He's not afraid to die, right? He's come to grips with that. And I think that that's something that the rural lifestyle has to offer, and the rodeo lifestyle, let's say, that perhaps our urban friends don't understand to quite the same level because death is so sanitized and away from them. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, because you did mention how hard it is on the body, and I was thinking about that. It's such an interesting idea that we would go and ride raging bulls and like bucking horses. You know what I mean? Like, why are we okay with this, and why is it so enjoyable?
You know, when I think back to that, and I'm going to say, when I think back to ranching and farming and that leading into rodeo, I'm going to go to the daily life of a farmer or rancher, say in Alberta. Like I said, we experience 4 seasons. And so taking care of cattle, taking care of crops, that is not easy on the body either. You know, farmers are out in the lovely minus 40 degrees Celsius weather, doing what they can for their animals, for their fields, for their land. And it's hard. Minus 40 being out there, putting all of that before yourself, making sure your cattle are fed, they're bedded down. Maybe your horses have blankets on. Maybe the water is broke. My waters have frozen before, and I've had to boil water for hours on end and go out and pour it and make sure my horses or whatever you have as an animal outside has water and feed. You can't bring horses inside. I mean, if you have a barn, you can, but you can't bring every single horse in Canada inside to keep them out of the cold. So you have to be able to make them live comfortably outside. And that was sparking my interest. Actually, chuck wagon racing has been a big thing talked about in Canada recently, especially in Alberta, because they've just been cut from the Calgary Stampede for this 2021 year. And people are angry about that, and people are happy about that. And where I want to go with that is chuck wagon horses are given a second chance to live their life. Most of these chuck wagon horses you see that these drivers are racing are retired horses off of a racetrack that would not have a place in this world when they're done. They would go for meat, or they would go to a factory. They don't have a chance. There is hundreds and thousands of them that have nothing to do after their, racing career is done. So oftentimes these chuck wagon racers will take these horses in, and they will bind them with their horses, and they will take them in to be chuck wagon horses. And they spend hours and days and years, months training these horses and giving them their best life, because it's in them to be able to race. That is what they are bred for. They're bred to run. And they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars feeding these horses, giving them their great lifestyle, building fence, getting their teeth done, getting their feet done, and I just wish that everybody could see that, because sometimes horses get hurt in chuck wagon racing. Sometimes horses get hurt in rodeos. Sometimes people get hurt in soccer, hockey. They break their legs, they'll break their arms, they'll get concussions, and it is the same with the sport of rodeo. Sports as a whole have that risk of people or animals getting hurt, but it doesn't mean that we should end them.
Yeah, and I think it comes back down to this idea of fear, right? Because even with COVID and everything that's going on, not that we want to get too political, but there's this environment of fear where people are just afraid of everything. They're afraid of getting sick. They're afraid of getting hurt. They're afraid of, not having a job. They're afraid of everything. And I think that's something that the rural lifestyle can give the urban lifestyle. And maybe we need a little bit more of that injected into our culture, which is, yeah, I'm going to go race a chuck wagon and it's dangerous and I could die. I mean, someone did die. I remember my mom at the Ponoka Stampede, she watched a crash and someone passed away from that. And it's just, to me anyway, such a refreshing view of the world to not be afraid. And what do you think it is that makes these people willing to take these arguably extreme risks? Like, what is it about the lifestyle that provides that?
It's a passion. They are
Right.
literally living their life to the best and the fullest they can every single day. And because they are so, I'm not going to say they're settled, but they are so at ease with their lifestyle and they love it so much that they put all of their passion and their heart into doing it, into creating themselves into that culture and that lifestyle. They're content. And so they know what they're doing every single day in their lives makes them happy. And it's their lifestyle. Like I'm trying to speak on other people's behalves here, because I don't necessarily go to my day-to-day life risking my life. You know, I ride in a rodeo arena, I barrel race myself, but I don't ride bucking bulls or horses or broncs. But when I think to any sport, it's the same. You have that risk. But in order to give something or to become the full potential that you can as a human being, you have to give your all to that, to whatever you are passionate about. You have to give yourself to that to be able to get to the best you can. And so I just think part of that is just giving it your all and not being afraid. And that's not necessarily something that you're just born with, not being afraid. I think sometimes you're raised that way, or you're taught to be that way, and people influence you, and things that you love influence you. And something that's influenced people to be so scared in day-to-day life with being sick, or with not wanting to do different events, or not wanting to travel, or not wanting to do this because they're scared, is the social media and different things that they see. And they haven't necessarily experienced it or seen it firsthand, but they're listening to the views of someone else that they don't even know is real. And I've been thinking about that because I've been very lucky to be able to see things through different people's eyes and different perspectives. I take them all in. I see the stress of people that are scared, you know, to get sick or to travel or to do these things. I see their concerns and they don't go unnoticed, but I also see the other side of things where things are opened up and going and people are living their day-to-day lives. So you need to be able to see both sides in order to, I guess, have an open opinion about everything. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand with all of that.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, we got to end here pretty quickly. So what would you like to leave our listeners with in terms of why do you love this lifestyle? What's so great about it? And where can our listeners find you and support you if necessary?
Sure. So this lifestyle has honestly made me into being the person I am today. And not only do I completely embody this lifestyle, but it's led me on the path to becoming a social worker. And that's completely different from this lifestyle, right? I know it sounds crazy that they're connected, but because of the way it's raised me and the way that it's helped me become a better person, that's what's led me into wanting to be that for other people and to be a role model and to be a mentor. So actually, after Miss Rodeo Canada, I'm going back to get my Bachelor of Social Work, and I want to be a social worker. And I think things that you're passionate about and lifestyles that you're passionate about can open up different portals for you to explore. And that was one that I got off of a branch of this lifestyle. And that's what it created for me. But what I want everyone to know out there is just be open-minded. Be willing to see the world through someone else's eyes and walk in someone else's shoes for a day, because when you get to do that and when you fully open yourself up to something that, say, you're not necessarily comfortable doing or you never saw yourself doing before, it can provide a completely different view for you. You can see the world in someone else's eyes, and it can change your opinions and your views as well for the better. So be open-minded and be willing to learn and to inform yourself on things before you have a very strong opinion, because I think it's really important to be educated on all different things.
I completely agree.
Well said.
Well said. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on, Alicia. We loved having you.
Thank you. And for anyone that wants to continue to follow my journey as Miss Rodeo Canada, you can follow us on Facebook, just Miss Rodeo Canada, or on Instagram as Miss Rodeo Canada. I share my daily trips and travels and education daily, so I'd love to have some more followers on there to see my views and my travels.
Let's make it happen, folks.
Thank you, guys. This was great.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.